Hello guys, it's Peter from PS Sound, and now this is part 9 of this Suzuki project, in which one we are going to install the Midbass now properly. You could see from the previous video the focal eye subs underneath the seats, and I showed to you what results we managed to get with them. This time we are going to do the permanent install with the Midbass that we've been planning for very long, but finally we had time for it. Some of you might have even seen the pictures shared on our Facebook page and in many Facebook groups, and I know it has created quite a wind. We will talk about that at the end of the video, but for this time, check out what we did, the time lapse and descriptions, and at the end I come back and we will discuss the odds and cons and the result of this installation. As you could see from the time lapse, I created these two rings with the router, and I fitted M4 inserts for two different baskets because we are going to test the Micro Precision 5 series that I have used quite a few times in True IB, and it's a very musical driver, very soft suspension, so it shows every single little detail, very sensitive. Then this is the bigger brother, the 7 series, which we would suggest rather for two-way application, but I want to test it now in this given install, proper side by side, same way, very linear suspension, nice and sensitive. And then we have the Stag MSS6 that I also want to try. This has a more progressive spider. It can take a bit more beating. It doesn't look like it has that much excursion, but in fact it can move a lot. But it's less likely that we could bottom it out if we were going crazy. The 5 series can definitely bottom out. You can hear 7 series doesn't quite, maybe it touches the bone plate, but you can't hear it. Obviously that has a deeper magnet, so more room for the coil to move, and this is impossible to bottom this one out. Not that it really mattered, because if you apply a high pass filter at the right place, then you should never have issue with that. But so I fitted the inserts for them. All the baskets can take M5 bolts, but if you use M5 you wouldn't have any wiggle room, so I'm using M4 with M4 inserts. People say, oh, it's not proper. Well, if you put a bolt in it and if you can pull those inserts out, then good luck for you. And to the time you fit a driver with 4 or 6 bolts, then you have no chance. that the driver would go anywhere. Plus, once it's in place in the car, you just can't get to it easily. So a machine bolt is always a better fixing than using self-tapping wood screws or whatever. To the time you take it in and out a few times, it doesn't hold properly anyway. You can see I use birch ply, easily accessible and very rigid. It's a 1-inch 25mm ring. You could use 18 as well, but I want to fit M6 inserts in this to mount these to the chassis, and the M6 inserts are 20mm, really deep, but they will definitely hold very well to bolt it through the chassis. So now it's time to find the place for them where the driver fits as well, and we have some room in the car, and then time to cut the carpet. From this point on, there's not much point to take time lapse because it would be rather boring, but all of you can understand what's happening right now. We just have to bolt the plywood ring through the wheel arch. We fitted M6 inserts in the wood, so that is solid because they are really long. They are like 20 mil long into the wood, and then now we just put it in temporarily to line up holes for fitting inserts, 2 more inserts into the wood that will hold this lure. So that we'll have 2 bolts in the middle, because to the time we bought it on, because of the shape of the arch, there's no need for anything on the sides because this will squash on. So we will have a piece of rain guard on the ring and a piece of rain guard on this, and bolt everything in place, and that's it. Of course, we put washers on those with spring washers as well, so it's not going to get loose. Job done. So the rings are now ready for action. Put them in place. I still have to put closure foam around the edge, so we have more material that can be squashed to seal any tiny little gap. M6 with spring washer, and then you can see 2 M4s here, which are going to hold this beautiful thing that will bolt on to the wheel arch from the outside. So we have plenty of breathing coming through that, but then this gets another layer on it. So we have 2 layers of rain guard. If anything can go through one layer, any moisture, the second one will definitely stop it. And even if you have anything going through both layers, which is not likely, then you don't have the magnet there, you have the cone of the driver. So unless you have a paper cone driver, you would worry. But you know, these drivers are all waterproof. That's fiberglass cone. That is, hell knows, but basically, well, if you put a driver in a door, you have even worse situation because you have moisture in there and water flowing on it, and you have also the magnet inside of the door. People never worry about it, they just happily chuck them in, and then when they take the speakers out, even we saw drivers that came out of cars after 3-4 months and they were rusty and they looked awful.
Usually most drivers are, even if it's a paper cone, is treated, it's not
exactly,
just paper.
Because that's some sort of, the 7 series from Micro Precision is some sort of paper, but even that can handle moisture. So yes, people always worry about it, and if we are at this topic, then I show this because it always comes up, rain guard. So this is a 9mm version. You can buy different thicknesses, you can also stack it. This is the same type of foam you see on PA outdoor speakers. This is exactly what you have in front of the grill or behind it, so when you have rain they can handle it. And you can buy them in rolls, and we just cut it to size. And then now you want to know where we buy them. The trouble is that we have many people, different people following us from different parts of the world. I have no idea where you can find them in different countries. So all I can say, you have to search for PA speaker grill. That's normally how it comes up, a speaker grill, pretty much. So let's put these in place now. Now in this one, we just give you a bit of a taste what we've been doing. So as you can see, I've had many measurements. Let's clear all of it and then let's talk about the geeky stuff. If you're not interested in all this geeky thing, then you may end the video right now because this is going to be long. So in this car previously we had the Focal ISUP twin underneath the seats, and now I have to reshoot it because we had a video and I lost it. So we had the left base, and we will focus on the left side now because we used the left side where it was easier to swap speakers in and out when we went through all of them. So with the left Focal we could maintain a house curve something like this, and we could tie the sub together with the mids on the dash. But with the Focal iSubs, those 4-inch Stag MSS3 mids which are not finished, and just saying that tweeter is not finished, so don't cry about the aiming of that. We had the iSub temporarily chucked underneath the seats, and that was the left Focal bass driver, full range, coming alive at around 60, but then it was functional up to around 170, which is okay if you have a large format mid-range on the pillar or on a dash. Then we could get a pretty good response, a good house curve without dips and cancellations, and it was accurate. At least we didn't have rattles coming from a door, but we could have had a bit more sensitivity. It's a pretty insensitive driver, so it needs a proper amplifier where you can set up the gain structure accordingly, and then yeah, get a bit more level out of it, because currently we are running off a Zapco ADSB 8-channel fully integrated amplifier, small digital amplifier. Even if it's 80 watts per channel, just like any other integrated amplifier, they are not the best for bass driving. We get very good output considering it's a shoebox size amp, but
yeah,
yeah,
plus
okay.
the EQ when you have to pull down.
Yeah, when we do the EQing, we showed in few tuning videos or RTA videos, you lose output and you cannot compensate on the DSP amp for that. So let's go to the end where we have all the drivers. So we had, now the 5 series is still up here. So first in the car we tested the Micro Precision 5 series driver, and if you can just spin it around, just show it, not show all of them. People have seen me using this. It's a very simple looking driver with a tiny little magnet. That magnet is super strong though.
Yeah, but very soft parts.
Very soft parts, very linear moving parts. The spider is linear. So these drivers are very sensitive. I mentioned it many times, but now in this video it will come through very well how much more sensitive they are than anything else, and they show every single little detail. So there you go, same output power, no EQ, full range. So the red was the Focal, this is the Micro Precision. The curve is very similar from underneath the seat, underneath the seat with the Focal, then in the kicks with the 6.5 Micro Precision. But yeah, that's like 60, and over there at 80 Hertz 68, so there's a good 8 dB over there, or even like here 58 ish, and that is 69. Yeah, 10-11 dB overall, which is hell of a lot. It's the difference between running something with a single watt or running something with 10 watts. So that Micro Precision is very sensitive, very musical. It sounded stunning, honestly. I use it in many cars, and when it comes to pure sound quality, it's a fantastic driver. So we could already see that the Focal, yes, as we always knew, it's just not a sensitive solution. Well, it's not even a 6.5, so it's not quite fair to compare it to the 6.5 inch drivers, because that's a tiny little oblong shaped, I don't know, what is it? It's like 3x5, 3x6 inch, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably less than 5.25 inch cone area. But from that, what it does, and from like 3 liter tiny little sealed box, it's remarkable. And it's a simple solution for those cars where you can't fit a driver in a door, or you just don't want the rattle from a door. So that was the 5 series. So as you could see, we didn't go with the usual Midbass installation like most people would be able to do. Yes, this comes with a sacrifice, this IB installation we did in the Suzuki, and it's fully understandable that probably 99 point something % of the users would never do this, because they worry too much about the value of the car or structural integrity of the car. So I fully get it. And we were talking about what we would do with this cheap car at the beginning with some of my friends as well in the trade, and they suggested, Pete, if you want a cheap system, then you should just do something simple that people can also achieve. Just put the Midbass in the door, put mids and tweeters on the pillars, get the best out of it so they can have an idea about what they can get. And we build many cars like that. Like recently I shared some of those projects where we had the Volkswagen Golf Mark 8, we had the Transporter T6, and many other cars where we do that, and we can get good results. And people try to put percentages to given installations, like, you know, what's the point of doing true IB and cutting the car because it only gives you like 1% more in performance. But in my eyes, it's not something you can put a percentage to. I mean, one installation does a good job, but what percentage is that in terms of performance? It does a good job, that's okay, and it's good for most people, but the other one just does something very different, very special. In my eyes, that makes all the difference, because that installation and this installation we did in the Suzuki, it's clearly about pushing the boundaries and getting the absolute best sound performance. It's just like building a race car and get the absolute best time on a track. You know, most cars may be fast and may be great to drive, and they take you from A to B, and that's just fine. But then some cars can nail it. Like, what's the point of Formula One? It's a bit similar. Most people don't see any point of that, spending millions in that and going around the racetrack with crazy speed. Yet all that, you know, is used in everyday cars. From that point of view, then why would we ever need family cars which can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, yet we have so many cars, right? If people were always satisfied with just an average and something okay, then we would be stuck there. And people have to understand that what we do and what we have done with this Midbass installation in this car as well is because we also like to show to people what's possible, what's possible out there. Yes, it comes with a sacrifice, but then they can have a reference level. Yes, it may be crazy doing this crazy installation to the Suzuki project, but once anyone sits in this car, they won't have any question. Once they hear this Midbass installation, they will understand what difference it makes. So let's quickly look at the odds and cons. So what does it do? Why would you ever do an installation like this? Well, first of all, I always say, and I've mentioned it in many videos, that Midbass is the trickiest to get right in a car. First of all, the most important thing for me in any system is zero vibration. I was talking to someone and he was asking me, Pete, what driver should I use? My doors are pretty rigid, it's well deadened, I have several layers of CLD tiles and everything on the door, and it's solid. I'm like, well, okay, fair enough, it might be solid, and I do many installations in doors. Some doors are more rigid than others, but you know, you can build a door with a Midbass and you can get good results and minimal amount of rattles. But even if, let's say, you kill all the rattles, it's still vibrating. You can't build a door that doesn't vibrate. It's just physically impossible, unless you go to the extent of cutting the whole inner skin out and you weld in a frame. You rebuild the whole inner skin. I've seen it in the US, people do that, and that's just as crazy. Yet they don't complain about that. But if someone does true IB installation in a car, then, oh, you cut the car, you know, you're a bad man. But if someone has been in car audio and knows some of the best cars ever built, then do they also question those people? Like, if I can pronounce his name well, Zeisman in the US in the 90s, I believe. he had a BMW 5 Series where he installed the freeway system of a BMW Nautilus, crazy expensive home speaker, where he fitted 13-inch drivers, 12 or 13-inch drivers in the kicks. That car needed cutting. Did anyone question that? Did anyone cry about that? And that's just one person. He's a legend in car audio, you know. And there are so many cars in the US, like Scott at Hybrid. How many cars did they build at Hybrid with true IB mid-bass? How many? And they all perform and they all do something really special. Does anyone question it? But then once I shared this project, everyone started to, I could see everyone started to get quite intense, because recently we have had quite many projects doing similar mid-bass installation, and to me it makes all the difference, because this installation has no vibration. It's just literally impossible to have any vibration with this, because the kicks of the car, whether you have to cut a bit of structural parts or just have to cut the V-larch, which is 1.5 mil, really thin sheet. You could see from the time lapse, I was cutting through it like butter. It didn't even need anything special. I didn't need plasma to cut through it. I was just using a multi-tool and jigsaw, and it went through it that easy. And yet, if you mount the driver on that part of the car, it's just rigid. It's concrete solid. Nothing can flex there. So the only sound you hear is only what comes out of the cone of the driver. And that makes all the difference, because you will get beautifully clean sound. That's one. Two, when you locate the mid-bass in the kicks, you have less puff length difference than in the doors. We could talk about that, and I have videos on Patreon where I explain this, why that matters a lot. But you can also do your research on Google and check out why puff length difference in a car matters a lot. Well, to keep it minimal as possible. Also, mid-bass drivers in the kicks just have way better response without cancellations and dips within the intended range between like 60 and 200. If you want to use it as a dedicated mid-range, then you will have problems. You will have to do extensive EQing. You will have problems above 200-300 Hz the same way like you would have from the door. But if you only want to keep it just dedicated mid-bass in freeway, you will have the best chance to get great response and match left and right as similar as possible with minimal EQing. Then attack of a system, and that classic when people say I want a chest kicking feeling in the car. Well, many things have to happen in order to get that in a car. This kick build is insane. Honestly, if you are in UK, calm down, get a demo, you won't believe it. At the moment we are still running it off a small digital multi-channel amplifier, which doesn't have the craziest power, but what it does is it's just silly. Honestly, I can't match it. I can't do it in any other car, anything that would be so clean, so tight, and would have that level of attack. Even on low levels, you can feel it, you can sense how clean it is, how responsive it is. Of course, you need the right drivers with the right specs to work in this application. It's not just like dropping any driver in it and then expecting magic. But once it's done well and matched with the right driver, it is super special. And that's why I wanted to build this car in a way where we don't go with the ordinary everyday installation options. That's why we pulled the dash out, put the mid-range in the dash. We did with the mid-bass, this craziness, because you have to hear it. You have to hear it, and it does, you know, it will explain everything. We did test several drivers. Some of you could see from the pictures I shared a week ago. We did test 8 drivers in this application. We wanted to see how they perform, how they behave. If you are interested in that, there's almost an hour-long video breaking that down, but that's on Patreon, so you have to go to description and check out the link. Sadly, you have to subscribe to Patreon and help us with that. I have to get a note to that. For those people who love to poke me and love to nag me, well, I should just look over those people, to be fair, because those people never understand how much work we have to do every day to run a business, pay the bills, and on the top of that, we try to share as much as we can, but there's a limit, because many people know that on my channel there's a lot more shared than on any other channel when it comes to sound quality and all the details, kind of like, you know, like a training program in a way. And I know many people have learned so much, and they are doing now so much better because they followed all my videos, and that's great. That's what moves the whole industry and the whole car audio culture forward, the whole sound quality madness. But I don't even have all the free time on the planet, so it's really difficult for me to find time for everything. And on Patreon, at least, I have the chance not to worry about editing videos, anything. I can just shoot the video and put it up. Yes, I could do it here on YouTube, you could say, but it's not as simple. So that's why I created Patreon, where many people learn a lot. And when some people tell me that, oh Pete, you know, what is this begging for money on Patreon? And that's, now I just have to mention for a minute, I'm not begging for money. I'm not forcing anyone to sign up to Patreon, but I always have to mention in every video that we have Patreon, because you can benefit hell of a lot over there. If you watch the content over there, you can learn hell of a lot. Patreon is a platform where people create content. I create content that has meaning and value to it. If you sign up and if you watch it, you can learn from it. If you don't take anything away from it, then sorry, the problem is with you. Or if you don't want to sit down and watch content, then you're lazy. So yeah, but sign up, check out all the other guys. More than 200 people, I think, have been signed up to this, and there are more than 180 people right now currently signed up to it, and they all learn hell of a lot over there. So all I can say, if you want to see that test where we tested multiple drivers and you want to learn from that, then you have to check it out in the description. But probably this is where I'm going to leave this video. We still have to install the tweeters in the car, because they were just banged into the pillars. I mentioned it earlier that wasn't a permanent installation, so we will aim the tweeters, install them in a very simple way. You will see that in the next video, and we will see where this project goes now. It's coming to the end. It's getting to the point that it's fully functional. We are happy to show it to customers anytime. I can see that this platform and what we have achieved so far works so well that possibly I won't be able to stop, and I won't be able to not to upgrade things and equipment in this car, even if I should really keep it as cheap as possible. Currently, the equipment in the car is 2.5 grand. In some countries, people can say that's a lot of money, but in some other countries, they say, well, it's still pretty cheap. If you consider freeway front end, 6 speakers, subwoofer, amplification, DSP, add your system up and tell me how much it is. Drop it in the description. Let me know what you think is expensive, what's cheap, what you have, how much the retail value of your equipment list is. Because people were complaining about the title of this project as well, because it says cheap sound quality car. And what it means is true, the car is cheap. So, but that's the thing, if you buy a very expensive car and if you worry about the value of it, cutting the car up, then don't buy an expensive car. Buy one that you can do anything with, and if audio is the most important thing for you, the car is not that important, then buy something cheaper, something reliable, and then get the best installation. Simple as that. And you will have a very, very special setup. And that's what we do. As you can see, these videos are scripted. I know I was talking about all the odds of this installation, and I never mentioned any of the cons. Yes, we have to mention it too, because we have to see both sides of this. Obviously, when it comes to the sound performance, how great it is, it's no question, it's bloody awesome. But yes, people can say, okay, there are downsides. You have to cut the car, right? That's the most important part. That is a big issue. If you keep the piece that you cut out, you can always weld it back, whether you weld it back properly or you have welding putties or whatnot. You put deadening over it and then you paint it from the outside. No one will ever tell it. And then cutting the wheel arch is not something that is structurally so strong. So in my eyes, you know, it can always be reverted back. It's just a bit of work. And as you could see, what we did, it was done probably in like 15 hours, this installation. So even if you have to revert it back, it takes not that much longer. Yes, the carpet had to be cut, but if you think about it, buying carpet from a breaker and then putting new carpet back into the car is doable. Then the other important thing I have to mention is road noise. Of course, it always comes up, people always think about it, because they say it completely destroys the performance of the mid-bass, because there's so much road noise coming through the cone of the driver that it just makes the whole installation pointless. Well, I may have to do measurements and show to people how much noise really comes through the cone of the driver. How much noise comes through the actual steel, what we cut out. There's not much difference in thickness. Okay, the material is different, right? So the steel is going to limit the noise that comes in differently than the cone of the driver. Fair enough. There are different drivers with different thicknesses of cones. When we did it in the Clio with the Focal driver, which has a sandwich cone and thicker cone, we couldn't really notice anything, honestly. It didn't introduce any more noise than the noise we had in that car. Yes, it's not a quiet car. And in the Suzuki, there was a bit of a hiss, a bit of shh coming into the cabin, but it's not something that's so intrusive that you can't live with. It's a bit of a sacrifice, 100%. But when I look at one side and the other side, then that little bit of a hiss that comes through in the Suzuki, I can live with that, because as soon as you listen to music at 85-90 dB listening level, you don't hear that hiss anymore. It's just covered. So in my eyes, you know, it's worth for me, but that's just me. Then another installation we had is the BMW 6 GT, where we did the same last summer. This summer, it's 2022 now. And over there, the driver was underneath the seat in the BMW, surrounded by thick carpet, grill on the top, seat on the top, and on the tray underneath the car. That car is actually with me right now, and I drove it again to see how it is on the road, because we have to do changes to the presets, and you can't hear it. And in that car, it would be even easier to hear it, because the car itself was quiet from factory, and then we added 6 days of work to do deadening and soundproofing in the car. So that car on the road is now so quiet, it's actually crazy. And in that car, for example, you don't hear any road noise coming into the cabin through the cone with the Focal AWM mid-bass drivers through the floor. So I guess over there it is different, because it's underneath the floor, and there's a plastic on the tray underneath, where the wind cannot really create that much of an issue. Whereas in the V-Large, you have the wheel directly close to the speaker, and you have wind turbulence, and that can create a bit more noise over there, and that's why we can hear a bit of a hiss coming through the driver. So that's pretty much the only two things I could mention as cons to this installation. Every mid-bass installation comes with issues. You know, if you put it in the door, you will have phase-related problems and cancellations in the response you can't fix. You will have vibration and rattles to deal with. So there's no perfect solution for a mid-bass installation in the car, really. Or you could do enclosures like I have in the Honda, but then the location is still, you know, causing issues and issue in the response that you have to somehow deal with. At least with an enclosure, you can get rid of the vibrations and the rattles. Yeah, it's always sacrifice. There's one reason why I always say that mid-bass installation is the most difficult thing in any car. So where are we now? Hopefully you liked all these 9 parts so far. Surely there will be more coming. Well, the next one will be the tweeter installation. That will be the 10th, and we will see where we go after that. But for this time, I'm gonna cut it here. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, because then you won't miss the next one, because you may see even crazier installations coming in the future. And please feel free to share it, comment, do what you want, just so you share all this information to other people. They can see that there's other solutions out there. Or this is simply about showing what's possible, and we will see whether I can ever see you can ever hear this car. I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait to have more and more people sit in this car. We already had many clients, some of my clients who've got very expensive systems from us, and they have already got shocked by this little cheap car. So this is it. Hopefully you liked it, and I can bring more videos in the future, and see you in the next one. Take care.